bulletin. They came to Jericho. As he and his disciples and a large crowd were leaving Jericho, Bartimaeus, son of Timaeus, a blind beggar, was sitting by the roadside. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout out and say, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Many sternly ordered him to be quiet, and he cried out even more loudly, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stood still and said, "Call him here." And they called the blind man, saying to him, "Take heart, get up, he is calling you." So throwing off his cloak, he sprang up and came to Jesus. Then Jesus said to him, "What do you want me to do for you?" The blind man said to him, "My teacher, let me see again." Jesus said to him, "Go, your faith has made you well." Immediately he regained his sight and followed him on the way. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Jesus was in Jericho, and a blind beggar, Bartimaeus, called out from the side of the road, from the margins of society. Mainstreamers aren't on the side of the road. No. "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Some tried to shush him up. "Shh, quiet." Didn't stop Bartimaeus. Oh no, he shouted out louder, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stopped and said, Call him here." Sort of reminds me of being on The Price is Right, you know? "Come on down, Bartimaeus. You're the one. Come on down." And it was his turn. It was his turn. And they said, some of them were like, "Jesus really wants to talk to you. Come on, let's go." And what's he do? He stands up and he throws off his cloak and he goes. Well, Jesus asked him a question. "What do you want me to do for you?" Bartimaeus didn't hesitate. "My teacher, let me see again." Jesus responded, "Go, your faith has made you well." And Bartimaeus regained his sight and followed him on the way. Another coded word for the Christian way, for following Jesus. Last week we heard this same question on the lips of Jesus when he asked James and John, "What do you want me to do for you?" And you know what? They said, "Well, we would like to be in heaven with you on the left side and the right side of you, Lord." And, they weren't really ready for the realities of what they were asking. And they weren't ready for Jesus to really go into Jerusalem. They were dreamers trying to figure out their place. The place. When Jesus took Jerusalem by storm, he was going to be the king. He was going to be so successful, and they just wanted to make sure they had their place all staked out, whether on earth or in heaven. Let's face it, they just didn't get it. They were spiritually vision impaired. Yes. The disciples didn't seem to have any problem with this blind man, though, did they? You didn't hear about how the disciples went over, John, James, Peter, any of them, and say, "Bartimaeus, come on up here." No. But all we heard was, "Stay in your place." People shushing him, "Stay in your place." In the margins, along the side of the road. He wasn't in the street with the disciples, but pushed aside. And even after Jesus had told them that many who would be first are on that street, many of us who are going to be first, will be last, and the last, those on the sides of the road, in the margins, they will be first. He just told his disciples that. The blind man Bartimaeus, a man in the margins of his society, immediately recognized Jesus for whom he was. The Son of David. Son of David, a title that denotes Jesus is from royalty, the king, David, and then also it has other implications. He's the Messiah. He's the one that everybody's been waiting for. Yes, it would be this man, a blind man, who immediately knows who this man is, Bartimaeus, who would spiritually lead the blind disciples. Think about it. He's the one who said it first. And soon we will hear on that road into Jerusalem, King of David, Son, King of David. Yes. And it starts here. And I also think about that rich man that we talked about last week. Bartimaeus threw off his cloak. Now, this is the one possession that an ancient Israelite needed. It kept you warm at night. You slept in it. It was almost like a blanket coat kind of thing. And this was the one possession this man had, and he threw it off. It's probably his most prized possession. And I think about that, and I think the rich man, he couldn't shed at that point. He couldn't shed his possessions to trust and follow Jesus. This man, Bartimaeus, he healed by word. Go, your faith has made you well. In distinct contrast to that rich man, Bartimaeus does not go. The rich man went away sad, but Bartimaeus chose to follow Jesus on the way. This was the last healing that Jesus will do in the book of Mark, in this gospel. Now, once healed, Bartimaeus had the opportunity to leave, as I said. Instead, he chose to follow Jesus as Jesus approached Jerusalem, as Jesus approached his trial, as Jesus approached his crucifixion, as Jesus approached his own death, as Jesus, again, was resurrected. He is the one, the only one, in all of Mark's gospel that Jesus healed who chose to follow him. Let's fast forward to the 16th century. It was a time when the church was kind of blinded by its own greed. The Pope needed money for its new basilica in Rome, St. Peter's, and he sent Johann Tetzel, a Dominican friar and papal commissioner for indulgences. He sent him to Germany. Martin Luther was said to object to a saying that Tetzel would say, as the coin in the coffer rings, cha-ching, the soul from purgatory into heaven springs. Buying yourself into heaven. That's what those indulgences were about. So on October 31st, 1571, Dr. Martin Luther, president of Wittenberg University, sent a letter, later to be known as the 95 Theses, to the Archbishop of Mainz and Magdeburg, objecting to the sale of indulgences.